and welcome to Progressive Perspectives, taking a progressive look at public affairs. Our special guest is State Representative Mary Jo McGuire.
Mary Jo has had a history of playing hockey with her brothers.
Now that's where you know Mary Jo from, then? What's that?
I've worked on many of Mary Jo's campaigns.
My claim to fame is the summer plays with Mary Jo. Yeah.
It's a bill to actually license gun owners and register the handguns and semi-automatic weapons. And what it does is it sets up a system similar to the system that you use now to drive a car. You apply for a license at the same place that you apply for your driver's license, and you have to prove that you have taken a test, that you know how to safely operate a handgun, and then and also have a background check on you, and then you receive a license, and you get that renewed every 4 years.
Frank, let's start with you. Can you tell me a little bit about what exactly it means to be a progressive?
Well, a progressive is a person who believes that we have a role for good government in our society.
To me, I would say the progressive wing of the party, so to speak, believes in smaller contributions and cleaner government as a result.
I noticed that you and Frank brought almost a library full of reading material here.
I'd say the mainstream media would be, the Star Tribune, right? And the St. Paul Pioneer Press. Locally, we have the Southside Pride. These session weeklies, they're supposed to be neutral. City pages could be considered, they call themselves alternative. The reader might not always be quite as hard-hitting, but they're another good source.
I have a copy of the Utney Reader. This is the Reader's Digest. The New Republic has been around for many years. Ms. Magazine.
Nation is another national one.
The idea being that money sways the elections.
Shameless fundraising.
Shameless, yes.
How do you put it nicely? Kind of kiss up to the wealthy. You may not take an interest in politics, but politics will take an interest in you. The Republicans are going too far right, and the Democrats are going too far left, and you're just going to have zealots or what have you on either end.
That's a possibility, but the way power is shared among all different branches of government, I don't think it's a very serious threat.
Instead, it's people who care about issues, whether they're feminists or the Green Caucus, people who care about the environment that pay special attention to these issues. And if the general public would simply, put some trust in the activists that take the time.
The actual figures are around $20,000 just to run for the legislature, and really all that pays for is the printing of lawn signs and maybe some literature that you'd hang on doors.
Frank, as I understand it, you recently got back from Washington, D.C.
Got to spend some time in the House chamber and the Senate chamber. I smelled some cigar smoke. I brought the circus right up to the steps.
Republicans did?
In the Capitol, yes. So look carefully at the elephants. They have scars. Mark Dayton, when he was very early on, he came out and spoke to local party groups. He was a supporter of the 4% solution. And he said,
even though it would affect him, he was willing to pay.
He said the individuals such as myself can afford to pay a little more, and
good for him.
It will tend to.
It's a good role model. We talk about role models and values. There's a good role model among the wealthy.
Yes,
in that particular case. Frank Collins, Tracy Hassan, Sherri Lessinger.
Do you want us to go more toward a socialist economy?
But I feel that our current system isn't working. We pretend that it's fair. It's not really. We pretend that people are rewarded according to their effort. That's not really what happens. People inherit wealth. People fall into positions that are compensated heavily, because of who they are, because of who they know. And other people don't fall into those positions that are compensated heavily, not because they're not deserving, not because they're not intelligent or hardworking. But I think that another important benefit of raising the minimum wage is that those people then would have more money to consume things and put into the economy, and that there'd be more money in the economy, and the economy would grow, and we would all be better off. Trickle up. That's what we need to try.
Trickle up.
Yes. And so White Castle's business will increase, so they will not have to raise prices or lay off employees.
So you're
Something
suggesting
has
that
to
demand
give.
will increase?
Exactly.
Something does have to give, though. Would that be the wealthy then having a little bit less spending power?
Not necessarily. Henry Ford's idea way back when was to radically increase the wages of his of his workers.
I think there comes a point when you have to boycott products or insist that the employees be paid better before you're going to be willing to buy from that company.
You had talked a little bit about Jocelyn Elders before the show.
Oh, boy, that was very disappointing to see her be let go. I'm very disappointed in President Clinton for not standing up for his choice.
Clinton does not support the legalization of marijuana, despite his not inhaling and teaching masturbation in the schools and some of the other very controversial issues she was supporting.
Well, I never heard Clinton say that he didn't support teaching masturbation in schools. I think she was talking about it in the context of safe sex. You can't catch a disease from that.
And it doesn't cause blindness.
It doesn't cause
contrary
blindness.
to my Catholic school teacher.
Right. I mean, we're very two-faced about it. We do it, but we don't talk about it.
I've heard that 90% do and the other 10% are lying.
Right. You know, and about the legalization of drugs, she did not really advocate the legalization of drugs. She said that we should talk about it, and many people have talked about it. William F. Buckley has talked about it, and especially certain drugs like marijuana. I mean, why should somebody go to jail for growing a plant?
This is John Kolstad, owner of his own business, Mill City Music in Minneapolis.
Last 15 years, the majority of new jobs have been created by the small business sector. And I can tell you, I've dealt with government and I've dealt with those large corporations. I find government much more responsive and much more efficient than those big companies. If you have a problem with one of those major companies, General Motors, who can you go to? But I think that it's been a public lie that business does everything right and government does everything wrong, and that get the government off our backs and everything's going to be better. Who's going to build our roads? Who's going to provide the national defense? At the same time that the business climate is supposed to be so bad that they're all leaving, in fact, more businesses were coming to Minnesota every year than were leaving, and we had the lowest unemployment while the rest of the country is in recession, and our economy was strong. There is something wrong with that story. They've been lying to us. And why were they lying to us? Because they wanted to pay less taxes. I would like to see a newspaper that represented the other 94% of the people, 96% of the people in the country. Certainly there should be some papers that represent the working class and the middle class, and I don't really see that there are. I mean, name a paper that isn't owned by a wealthy family. But afterwards, what I realized is that by me being forced to present these issues, that it really made me grow as a person. And so I think it would be a positive thing for anybody to run for office, to bring out those issues, to create a forum. And it doesn't matter to me. I don't think you should think of whether you win or lose. It's not a football game. Okay. This is our public democracy, and we got to create these forums, and candidates create the forum, and that's why you should become a candidate.
Leo Cashman, who is an environmental writer for the Southside Pride publication. What would you say is the one that poses the greatest health risk to people right here in the Twin Cities, to our viewers at home?
Most concerned about is child lead poisoning. They like to also play out in the dirt, they play in the yard, they play on the floor, they crawl around on the floor. And so, and they're not as trained in terms of health habits and not putting things in their mouth.
Yeah.
They have greater difficulty learning. In the words of Dr. Patrick Reagan, it causes a dumbing down of the population of our children. And
that's a serious problem all around, I would say.
Well, that's right. We think of ourselves.
Just look at the last election.
There are some pretty serious environmental concerns relating to the landfill of incinerator ash, and lead and cadmium and a number of other heavy metals are pretty prominent in that. You also have concerns over the air emissions, and there's some lead that escapes, but probably mercury is a greater concern. Well, the fuel rod is so exposed fuel rod without any shielding is so radioactive that if you drove by on a motorcycle at 50 miles an hour, you would receive a lethal dose.
Okay, now I wouldn't fall off my motorcycle right away, would I?
No.
Okay.
No, but your cells would be damaged, your internal organs, your blood cells, your immune system would be damaged, and you'd probably die within a month. Storing the high-level nuclear waste in these dry casks just outside the Prairie Island plant, which, as you know, is located near the Mississippi River, near Red Wing.
In a floodplain.
So, and near and near the Prairie Island community. So you have the issue of environmental racism. Again, this is not in Edina and it's not in Wayzata or in the governor's backyard. This is the problem that has cropped up at a power plant in Michigan. They found that after loading it with spent fuel rods, that there's a defective weld inside, and that they can't really ethically send a human being in there to do that. So they're talking about doing it by remote control, and then you have more opportunity for something to drop.
Some sort of a high-tech robot or something.
Right. So, again, you probably haven't heard a lot about this, but it's a cause of concern. So, I guess the point is...
We could have the Michigan militia do the work, maybe.
Southwestern Minnesota, with the Buffalo Ridge being a good site to establish wind farms. The gasoline tax is a logical place to put the money for mass transit, and we probably need to change our state constitution, which is very difficult. I can't imagine the people of Minnesota saying, oh yes, I would love to change our state constitution so that you can tax me more in gasoline. Now this year they've finally sort of come up against the wall, so to speak, and they're actually cutting back on their construction projects, and we're going to see some extreme traffic congestion over the next few years.
To ship money from the suburbs to the metro areas is actually going to help Orfield's district, which is supposedly affluent. Who's right or wrong on this one? This sounds like kind of a touchy one.
Well, Jesse's bigger.
Jesse's bigger. Yeah, I argued with him once on the air, and that was pretty intimidating. Controversial one that's been talked about in progressive circles is this democratic concept of a democratic leadership council, and might be called maybe kind of the Republican wing within the Democratic Party. It's a national thing, and it helped Clinton kind of chose Clinton and got him elected, I think.
And then one of the founders of it.
Okay.
And it was an attempt by these Southern Democrats to nominate at the national level a candidate who would be more agreeable to the Southern to the Southern states and the Southern parties, or the Southern Democratic
More of a moderate or middle of the road type of Democrat.
A moderate or middle of the road, yes, or downright conservative.
You know, when Arnie talks about less government, Arnie is really an anarchist.
Well,
what do you think?
I don't think anybody's advocating anarchy. I think we've gotten to the point where Big Brother or Uncle Sam takes care of us so much that we've lost some of that sense of individual responsibility. Before, people expected to take care of themselves. Now we're looking for a government handout at one level or another, whether it be welfare or student loans or corporate welfare or whatever type of level you're talking about. But people definitely don't have the same sense of responsibility as we did at one point. It's gotten to the point where our expectations for government have gotten so high that we've lost the individual expectations of what can I do.
We don't have a work ethic, you're saying?
It's like what Kennedy said, about...
Yeah, ask not what you can do for your country, but what it can do for you.
Exactly. Now we've reached the point where we're asking what our country can do for each one of us. Where do you draw the line, though? I'm sure every American would like a handout or a subsidy from the government. But basically, it's our money.
Anybody can lose their job at any time.
That's true, but the government is taking more and more money from our paychecks every week.
Okay, well, in closing, I'd say one question people at home have to ask themselves is, am I gonna be a millionaire? Am I gonna do it? That's all we have time for. I get to have the last word. Until next time, thanks for watching Progressive Perspectives.